There's an adage an historian once called a law of history, true of every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars. The light of optimism, of faith, of truth, and service.
Hello, and welcome to the Political Pour Up Podcast. I'm Sue.
This is Jazz.
And I'm Jen.
And we are three friends who regretfully like to talk about politics. And we have to have a drink while we do it now. Because
we are three sad friends.
Three sad friends. A lot has happened in the last week. And I think we're all still collectively processing our feelings, and it's okay to feel and be upset and be just mournful for the bright future that could have been. That's all I got.
It definitely feels like a week of mourning.
Yes, quite literally. That is what I have done. Although I did get out of the bed on Thursday. The wounds are still fresh, but I mean, in retrospect, I think it felt worse than 2016 because it was like, we knew it wasn't the outcome that we wanted. I think that there were a lot more people who were very excited about Hillary than those that, were not, but it still wasn't Obama energy. This time around, I think we did see that, like, Obama energy. It did, even if it was just in our little blue DMV bubble, like the energy in the city was just very excited, like something exciting was about to happen. So when that didn't happen, I think it felt like we were on a higher high than 2016. And then to have the same outcome almost in the almost identical manner, it like Hillary got one more electoral college vote than Kamala is expected to get. So and the trajectory of how the state started to fall happened in very similar ways. Jazz, how are you feeling? How's
disappointed?
Jazz was the last person to leave my house, though. So
I sure was.
After she left, I
was hoping
did some rage cleaning at 3:00 in the morning.
Bless your heart, because I came home and then could not get to sleep and then watched the news some more after I tried to distract myself for a little bit, and then it did not work. And so then I watched it, and then I texted Jen at 5:00 in the morning.
I had just gone to sleep by then, I think. And
I was going to say, my fiance had to come out and tap me on my head and tell me to please come to bed. So it's like, you should come to bed. And I think I might have actually shut my eyes before the sun came up. But I totally agree with you. 2016, very disappointed at the outcome. But this time, I think I was a little more just totally disheartened and further disappointed, because I'm like, it's one thing to not know what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
We've experienced it. So many people were never again never again Trumpers, pretty much, based on the actual things that he did and how it affected them. And I'm just saying, how short a time period that was.
Yeah,
according to some folks. So and also it's just the things that we saw before were just ramped up in the ugliness is also a bit of what just disheartened me. Even had she won, the ugliness and the vitriol that came out during, and now what we see after is just sickening.
Yeah. What about you, Jen?
Wow. I have experienced a full range of emotions in the wake of the election results. I guess immediately, I think I was like, when Jazz texted, I was like, I just am sick to my stomach. And then, I cried. I dreaded my girls waking up to a completely different world than the one that we had the privilege of knowing, and the future that we had hoped for them. They were very excited about Kamala, and we're still very proud of Kamala. Listen, like, let's not get it twisted.
For sure.
Girl,
Kamala did the damn thing. She's still our VP, so there's that. I just want to say, Kamala did the impossible. So that's that. So then here's where I get angry, I guess. So, so I guess how I'm feeling today is like, well, we got to just prepare ourselves because it's going to get rocky. And I don't have much else to say.
Yeah, I think that it also has a little to do with it too, and like the feelings of despair, because it's like, I mean, I think we in 2016 it was like, oh my god, who would ever like allow this guy to be anywhere near the White House? Okay, but yeah, I was like, oh, but at the same time, it's like, what could go wrong? He just goes in there and like turns it into a reality show. Like, no, like not only that, but like it makes the whole movement feel like more emboldened now into like the racism, the misogyny, the xenophobia, like all of the horrible things. It's like, not only is that what he ran on during the campaign and promised to double, triple down on day one, that's something that is frightening to those of us who have a grasp of how government remotely works, to understand that that's not going to be a good thing for anybody who's not a rich white person.
Yeah, and I think that too is like, my heart and stomach just ache for people. We know that his policies are going to affect marginalized communities the most. And what makes me so mad is that, we didn't ask for this, nor anyone who voted for Kamala did not ask for this, but we're certainly going to have to live with this shit. And I'm quite frankly sick of it. And it makes me angry. Like, these stop and frisk policies, who's that going to hurt? I mean, yeah, we know it's aimed at, immigrants. However, it's going to hurt Black communities.
The only people they don't want immigrating here are people of color, because it was very clear in his first presidency when he went around to get his illegal immigrant wife's family over here and rushed them through the immigration process and then shut the door on everybody except your white Europeans.
Exactly. Yeah, and also too, the numbers that they're talking about deporting, like, it's not just like, if you're a naturalized citizen, watch out.
They're talking about naturalized citizens.
Like, they're talking Stephen Miller already has a plan for denaturalizing.
Not to mention, they're also
and that's going to affect a lot of Black people, Haitians, Africans.
Also, let's not forget, people are forgetting that part of their policy, which they were shy about letting us know about, they don't care about what it does to families. And if the complaint is about, because the complaint that a lot of people on the side of decency had was, how could you be ripping families apart?
Well,
specifically children from parents. And now the
that
argument
wasn't a deal breaker in the first
time. I mean, I think people are forgetting that when people are saying we can just deport the whole family, they don't mean like only the people who don't have documents in the family. Right. They don't mean only the people that speak Spanish in the family.
And then here's the thing. So 2016, Sue, you were saying, like, we were like, who would let him anywhere close to the White House? We didn't really know what he was capable of in 2016, but we could imagine. Like, we were like, well, he just doesn't need to be anywhere near the button. Yeah. Like the nuclear.
Right. I think the worst thing he said was to grab him by the pee.
Yeah, that was before we knew he was.
Yeah, that was like a couple of. Right. I mean, I
not
think
only
we
did
all
we
kind of
live
had
it,
an
we
idea.
know.
But that was before we had
Yeah.
actual legal proof on
Yeah.
more than one occasion.
That's before he had 34 felonies.
Right.
And,
Like,
yeah.
not only did we live through the horror of his presidency, mismanagement, and then, like, that's also when we saw a lot of police brutality. Like, let's not forget.
I mean, he was the one
He
that
was
said,
mobilizing. He was trying to mobilizing the what was it, National Guards, and then I don't know. It's just like when I talked, I'm like, how could we have lived this, and then people signed back up for this? And when I spoke to the family that I know who are Latino and voted for him, it's like they don't believe all of the worst things he got up there and said. They think it's just, oh, that's just election talk or that's just campaign talk. He's not going to do that. He can't get rid of educate. Like, they do not believe this man. And I'm
well, he
like,
lied so much and he did it on purpose. The whole thing about that is to lie so much that people don't know whether or not you're telling the truth. Because one thing that we all, I believe that all of us can agree on, at least that we saw during the elections, like during the election cycle running up to this, was that he would say something wildly flagrant and very much so specific about what he meant and hateful, and no matter how low it was. And then the same people who we could hear him say it verbatim would say, no, that's not what he meant. Mm-hmm. Even if they had the exact sound bite of him saying it. No, he didn't mean that. And would try to Trump explain us what they thought he really meant.
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
And they fell for it.
But then those same people are the same people who vote for him because they believe what he says when it benefits them. Oh, he says the economy's trash and he's going to get it together. So we believe him. He says that the border is out of control. So we believe him. He says that, it's illegal immigrants. So we believe him. Even the Haitian immigrants and cats and dogs, even after it was disproved and disproved and disproved, and they admitted that they were lying, they still said it. And people are still like, well, protect the pets,
Well, yes. Dark times ahead indeed. But we're here and we have to keep surviving and thriving, which we do in particular and especially because we are Black women. I just think that, we know that there are tough times ahead, and it sucks that, we're like, oh, well, we always get through it. But the thing is, it's like we have to always be overcoming something. It's like we can't just have a moment of peace and a moment of just stability within society that will allow us to just
breathe.
Exist without having to fight.
Yeah.
Maybe like push forward towards,
Yeah. Well, we're still going to push forward. Like, we're still, like, I think we as people, this is nothing new. America just like reaffirmed what a lot of us had already knew. And while it was aspirational to think that in this moment, especially in this volatile political environment, that a Black woman would prevail, that was a hope and a aspiration that we rightfully thought could happen. But there are a lot of people who are like, well, that's America being America. And to a certain extent, that's correct. But that doesn't mean that we'll stop continuing forward.
And so that's the thing, right? Like, we know who and what this country is. But one thing I've noticed that's a little troubling for me is I think a lot of people who have come to this country, I would say in the last 20 or 30 years or so, even those who are Black and naturalized citizens, they don't have a connection like we do with this country's history, especially towards Black people. And
yeah, they don't want
to
have a connection with us.
Well, I wouldn't say that about everyone, but I'm saying certain things. I mean, certain things can only really be understood by like lived experience. Other things kind of you have to be taught about or experience it, but it's been so much stuff that has happened since. Like, I mean, even if you think about kids there are certain kids who grew up with their first president being the Black president. So it's not very much so a distant thing for them. But also, I will say that I think that there might have been a very much so like a break in time where things were a little rosier. But I think for a lot of immigrants, I think it's gotten really real within the last, like, I don't know, since 2020, if not a little before, because
Yeah, I think that
there's a
I
lot of stuff
agree.
that's
I think,
happened since 2016, since
Yeah.
then, that's made it like,
yeah,
I would say,
I don't think, because y'all know, like, I
go
grew
ahead.
up with a lot of friends who were not born here,
Mhm.
and they're Black, but they were not born here. And I will say that seeing, like, some of them, right, like the ones who came over younger, they get it, but it's still this detached sense, like I think we have a more emotional, just from like shared, like our parents passing down
Mhm.
these stories and making sure we know this history. Like, we have a very emotional attachment to that period in time and how our people suffered. And although I think the ones my age kind of understand a little bit about race and politics in this country, it's not the same. However, I will say that I think since 2016 to 2020, when we started to see that, oh, shithole country,
That
my
hate.
country's a shithole. Wait a minute, like, oh wait, I'm also seen as a Black person in this country. Like, oh wait, that
Mhm.
racism applies to me. I
Right.
think it's very recent. And I think some of the elders that I've seen from, still may have a ways to go, but I do
Mhm.
think, and I think a lot of people in the coming years are going to get a crash course on exactly what America's history is and what America has been. And Chimamanda Adichie, who I think in her book Americana, is when she talks about, kind of coming here and having these same views about Black Americans and their lack of achievement and, all of those things, until she started to understand systemic oppression and things like redlining, or,
Yeah.
just all the ways in which this country and this government has violently oppressed us and any progress we make. And so that doesn't just apply to us. Like, and I think, I don't know, I just think if more people could do that sort of fact finding, people might vote a different way.
Well, speaking of
Mm.
election results, we have some in terms of the presidential election between the Kamala Harris and he who shall not be named, number 45. What class called, like, y'all fuck with 45? Kamala Harris received 226 electoral votes. Talk about the Electoral College. There are 538 Electoral College votes to be given based on how the states voted which candidate that the majority of people there wanted their Electoral College votes to go to. Harris has 226 electoral votes, and Trump has 312 electoral votes. The magic number that you have to get to win the presidency was 270. So 312 surpasses 270 and then some. In terms of the popular vote, votes are still being counted, but as it stands now, the AP, I think it's the AP who's projecting the vote total to eventually, when it's all said and done, the vote total will be about 157.6 million votes will be cast. As it stands now, Kamala Harris has around 72 million votes, giving her 48% of the popular vote. And Trump has 75 million votes, giving him 50% of the popular vote. So we'll see. A lot of the votes that still have yet to be counted are on the West Coast. California usually takes weeks to count votes, as well as Washington and Oregon. Those are the states who were the last to close polls, being on the West Coast. And they also take a little bit longer to process their ballots, given the laws that they use to make sure that the vote is accurate and not efficient, but accurate, which I guess is at the end of the day is the most important part. So we have a president elect, in the former president, and he will be inaugurated, I guess, on January 20th, which is also for all you people living in DC. It's also the Monday of MLK weekend. So it's a long weekend. So if you're making plans to get out of town, like I did in 2016, I suggest it.
That's blasphemous.
Why?
To be inaugurating this white supremacist motherfucker on Martin Luther King Day.
I think it happened.
It's by far. I know it usually lines up, but of all the people.
Yeah.
Of literally all the people.
Yeah. That sucks.
It's just like.
But yeah, I won't be here.
Dr. King is going to be rotating in that grave, okay? Like a rotisserie.
Oh my God, I visualized the rotisserie chicken and I don't like that. I don't want to think
I am just going to tell you right now, if you thought
turning over,
he's going to be doing backflips, somersaults, looking like Simone Biles doing a dismount down there, okay? This is awful. It's awful.
Yeah. So the inauguration will take place per the Constitution on January 20th, which is a Monday. The vote will be certified by Congress on January 6th. If that date sounds familiar to anyone, that's also the date where 4 years ago, supporters of the president-elect staged a coup, even though it was not very organized. It was very impactful, and several people's lives were either lost or dramatically and traumatically affected. But that happened on January 6th when Congress voted to certify the election, which always happens prior to inauguration. So we will see that process take place again, and Vice President Harris will preside over that process as the vice president. And President Biden and Vice President Harris have vowed a smooth transition process to the new administration, which I'm sure, being the very upstanding and classy Americans that they are, will no doubt take place. I haven't seen anybody looking to protest on January 6th or January 5th. Nobody. That's not the type of time we on. We're not about those games, but what we will do is we will use our collective power to strategize for the long term. I think that's where we are with it now.
We got plenty of time between now and January 5th or 6th to go ahead and protest if you'd like to, though.
Yes. I will say, yes, there is a protest. I was gonna bring, there is a protest on January 18th. The People's March is being organized. I was gonna talk about that towards the end, but there is a march being organized. Like there was a women's march in 2017. There was a women's march either the day of or the day before inauguration that really brought out masses. And so there is a different type of march being organized, but something that you can definitely get involved in if that is what you're interested in.
Didn't you go to that march?
No.
You didn't go to the women's march? I don't know why I thought you did.
No, I wasn't here. I told you I got the fuck out.
That's true.
We did. Oh, you weren't there either. We were in the Poconos. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that was 2017 when we went to the Poconos for my birthday. Yes. I specifically planned it on that weekend, so we would not be here. Anywho. Yeah, it's looking like that again too, because I was like, okay, what are we doing for our birthday? Probably going to keep it close to home, and yeah, but won't be here. The mountains are looking nice. Let's see, in terms of more election results. So, as we talked about several times on the podcast, there was more on the ballot than just the presidential race. Senate, which Democrats currently hold by a very narrow margin, looks like it will, I think it's pretty much solidified that it will be controlled by the Republicans. It still is yet to be seen how much of a margin the Republicans will have a majority in the Senate by. Right now, I think it's looking like it's 53 Republicans to 46 Democrats. They're still counting votes in Arizona, where the Democrat Ruben Gallo leads in front of the Republican Carrie Lake. In Pennsylvania, the votes are still being counted, but the AP has called, as of this recording, the AP has called the race for the Republican candidate, McCormick, but Bob Casey has not conceded yet and has said that he will not concede until 100% or all the ballots have been counted. And I think right now McCormick leads by like 0.5 percentage points. So it's extremely close. I think the amount of outstanding ballots that still need to be counted, the Casey campaign believes it's enough to make up the margin that they would need. So Pennsylvania is still, I think, up in the air. Democrats lost seats that they held in Montana. John Tester, a long-serving Democratic senator, lost his seat. In Ohio, Sherrod Brown lost his seat to Bernie Moreno, who is just no words. And then in West Virginia, the pseudo-Democrat Joe Manchin did not run for re-election. So in very red West Virginia, the current popular governor, Jim Justice, was elected as senator. So that's considered a flip, but in West Virginia, I don't think anybody is really surprised by that. Jackie Rosen in Nevada held on very narrowly to her seat. I think that race was just called a day or so ago. Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin held on to her seat, thank goodness. And Tim Kaine in Virginia had a race that wasn't expected to be as close, I think, but he was able to walk away with the win in that. Also, Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan, another state that Trump won. Well, Trump won all the swing states, all 7 of the swing states, which is just terrible. But Alyssa Slotkin won the Senate race in Michigan. Yay. You were going to say something, ironically.
An anomaly.
Oh, yeah, yes. Swing states? At least Hillary won, like, what she win? Arizona or Nevada? She won one of them. Anywho, there was good news. If you were being very optimistic and good news was able to come into your orbit and just make you a little bit more hopeful about the future, for the first time in American history, there'll be 2 Black women in the Senate. Angela Alsobrooks, Senator-elect from Maryland, my home state, my county sister, Prince George's County, stand up. Woo! Is the senator-elect from Maryland. She will be the first Black senator elected from Maryland and the first Black woman, of course. But also Lisa Blunt Rochester won her race to become senator from Delaware. Woo! So they're like neighboring states. They're going to be like the best sister senators. Like, that's just so cute. I just love it. It's like Maryland, Delaware, right there. They are, it's an AKA and a Delta. I just love it. That was the silver lining on our very, very dark cloud on Tuesday.
Maryland started to go a little viral, I think.
As it should. Maryland, first of all, we got one of the most, like, not only is he extremely attractive, but like the most energetic and engaging governors. Like, how can you hate Wes Moore? Like, he's so awesome. I love him. You got Brandon Scott just like standing ovation for Black women on like from the podium. Like, thank you, Black brother. Like, there's so much winning going on in Maryland, and it's like we're not trying to turn it into a us versus them in terms of the states, but Maryland got it going on.
It's what progress looks like.
Yeah, this is
and that's exactly progress was achieved by everyone in the state who participated, or majority.
Yes. Harris won Maryland. Angela Alsobrooks had a very tough campaign against, not only in her primary, she ran against, I believe David Trump was like the richest man in Congress at the time, very heavily funded, put a lot of his own money into his campaign, won the primary, then come into the general election, have a candidate who is handpicked by Mitch McConnell to try to get the Senate back into Republican control, which, I mean, at this point, it's like, okay, y'all spend all that money. Y'all didn't need Larry Hogan, obviously, because they just threw the money out to the Senate races. Like, here you go, just win. We don't care how you do it, just win. We don't even care if you live in that state, just win. But thank goodness that our sis Angela Also Brooks ran a very disciplined and smart campaign against an opponent who literally tried to attack her for 90% of his campaign was trying to attack her on something that was just like most people really didn't understand, except for when he was like, she's cheating. It's like, okay. But nothing about his policy proposals and what he wants to do is all about she's a crook or she's, this or that. So obviously that did not work with voters here in Maryland.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited for those two women to represent their states and serve the people of Maryland and Delaware in the most upstanding way, which I know they will.
Have you wondered why that sort of, campaign wasn't successful here, but it was largely, some of the same tactics were largely successful in the general election for, the presidential election, rather?
I can give you my thoughts. I mean, we're close to the government. I don't think that it's by any coincidence that the people who live in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia voted overwhelmingly in favor for Harris, as well as their other Democratic.
Yeah.
I think they understand it a little bit more. When stuff happens, it affects us differently. The people around the country decide to elect to Congress affects everybody in D.C.
Yeah, but
because they start making rules for shit we can do. So, or blocking stuff that we're actually trying to do, or controlling our actual budget. But I do think there's a lot of people who also work in the government. So even if you're not someone who's college educated, even if you're not somebody who necessarily is a political junkie, it affects your life. It may even to the basics of your job. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many people that work either in state or federal government in this area. You don't have in addition to all the other industries that exist throughout the country, you just don't have the convenience of being so blissfully ignorant about stuff and thinking that it won't affect you, because chances are it'll happen here first.
So abortion ballot initiatives won in the majority of states where abortion was directly on the ballot. Unfortunately, that support of abortion access did not translate into votes for not only the presidential candidates, but the representatives, either the federal or the state level, that will either put a national abortion ban or state laws into place that will restrict abortion. So the votes in support of abortion access in terms of ballot initiatives did not necessarily translate into support for Democrat candidates. And a lot of people who voted for Trump also supported the ballot initiative in their state, even though Trump has gloated that he was responsible for getting rid of Roe versus Wade. When asked why the split in support, some of these voters said that, one, they really didn't believe that Trump would sign a national abortion ban, which he promised that he would not do. So they took him at his word, which we'll see what happens with that. I wouldn't hold my breath. But also that, because Trump kept repeating it belongs with the states, it's a decision that belongs with the states. And those voters are obviously in a state where they can weigh in directly on the abortion issue because their state allows citizen-led ballot initiatives, but every state does not. So the laws concerning abortion and reproductive rights will be left to the state legislatures and the governors in their states, who in the states, obviously, that have already banned abortion in the years following the Dobbs decision, have left us with a very chaotic system where patients are who are seeking abortions, and even those who are not, are just, they've suffered a spontaneous abortion, which is a miscarriage, or their pregnancy is facing some other devastating health diagnosis, and an abortion is the only safe and ethical procedure to ensure that the pregnant individual is able to continue living. Also, a good time to point out that if a national abortion ban went into effect, so let's just say that Congress passed a national abortion ban, or whatever terminology they're using to call abortion restrictions these days, and the president signs it, that will trump whatever is in the state constitutions, federal law, per the supremacy clause. If we still have a constitution, federal law supersedes any state law, and that includes state constitutions. So if a national abortion ban goes into effect, the provisions that these ballot initiatives that voters have overwhelmingly supported will be null and void. Lastly, in terms of the election results, one of the things that I think has been getting a lot of attention, especially on social media and in some waves of mainstream media too, is the exit poll data that is coming out of the election results. And it appears that Trump had made significant gains in communities that Biden and Hillary, or Democrats, traditionally performed better in. It's been, I think Jasmine is going to talk about that a little bit in terms of what's going on social media. But in terms of the facts, and I use the term facts very loosely, because exit poll data is a very, very small sampling of the overall electorate. Exit poll data is taken after every election, and it represents a random selection of voters as they exit polling locations across the country. The major news networks get together to execute the research, and it's conducted by this particular poll. I think that everyone has been seeing has been conducted by Edison Research and the National Election Poll Consortium of ABC, CBS, CNN, and NBC News. They randomly selected a little under 23,000 voters from across the country on November 5th, and as well as in-person early voting locations. Also, they used live telephone and text to web and email correspondence to get their results. So suffice to say, there are, 157 million ballots that are likely to be cast in this election. And 23,000, it's like a very small 0.00 percentage point of that number. So that's how most polling is conducted. It's a sampling of the general population, because it would be very difficult to poll every single person who voted. That's what voting is for. But so the results, or the exit poll data that we're seeing, that's something just to keep into context about the numbers that are coming out from the election. According to the exit polls, 55% of Latino men voted for former President Trump. And that was a shift to the right, but not by as much from 2020 as people may have originally thought. 60% of Latino women voted for Harris. Latino women pretty much canceled out any gain that Latino men had made for Trump, according to the exit polling. In terms of the percentage of the population, Latinos are about 19% of the population, and they were only 12% of the electorate from the findings of these exit polls. So that's something that also needs to be taken holistically with the results of the election. Black voters overwhelmingly supported Harris. 91% of Black women and 77% of Black men, which was contrary to the accusations that were swirling prior to the election that more Black men were supporting Trump. That 77% number was about the exact same of the support that Biden gained in 2020. In terms of Black voters as a whole, 85% of their votes went to Harris. And also, Black people are 11% of the population. And in terms of the exit polls, they represented about 11% of the electorate, which is how the share is supposed to be if you're looking at a completely representative population. So, white voters represented 71% of the vote total. 35% of the electorate was white men, and 37% of the electorate was white women. White women represent only 30% of the population. So their share of the electorate was overwhelming compared to their actual population in the country. That's something that I think is going to be highlighted as a rebuttal to anyone who is looking to, throw all voters of color under the bus of not supporting Democratic candidates and Harris this time around, when white voters represented a huge percentage of the electorate compared to their general share of their overall population. In 2020, white voters only represented 67% of the electorate. One thing that's really interesting to point out, while Harris did gain majority support from white women, college-educated voters, Trump overwhelmingly gained the support of white women voters who did not have a college degree. In terms of the age ranges that were polled, Trump won every age group among white voters. In particular, something that's notable is there was a 49-49 split between Harris and Trump in terms of young voters. And I think that's 18 to 29. So Gen Z voters, which young voters traditionally tend to be more progressive, more democratic, but in this election we see that it's about 50-50, which is significant. And I think that speaks to a lot of what the Trump campaign did in terms of their strategy for the campaign, was instead of doing more traditional media outlets, reaching out to podcasts and doing podcasts and other social media publicity that is seen as, not your standard go-to for a presidential election. But that's something that they really invested in. And I guess it paid off in terms of getting Gen Z voters on board. Harris won the white college-educated voters, but significant here is that the turnout among white college-educated voters was less than it was in 2020. All white Christians of all denominations voted for Trump. Black Christians of all denominations, Muslim and Jewish voters showed up significantly for Vice President Harris. And then the last thing that I'll note is that misinformation, as the dust is settling, we can kind of regroup and think about what transpired over the past couple months. Misinformation was a huge factor in the mindsets of voters who voted for Trump. A lot of Trump voters believed lies about the economy, despite, what was happening in their own situations. They believed that their jobs were being taken, their food prices are higher, their, things that they wanted to afford that they couldn't. And it was all because of President Biden's policies. And also misinformation about immigration, those jobs being taken by illegal immigrants coming into this country, and not only taking jobs, but committing crimes, and crime being way up, despite the fact that crime is significantly lower than it was, during Trump era, or just even a couple years ago. It's on a decline now. But they use a lot of misinformation to persuade voters that things were a lot more dire than the reality that they were seeing in their everyday lives. And they believed it, and they went for it. So that sucks. Yeah. I would be remiss if I did not highlight the other person whose name it pains me to say, but the owner of X and, all of those other businesses that he just bought and never actually created from the ground up. But that person...
Or soon the actual co-creators.
Right, exactly. That South African really used his platform and his influence to significantly put out a lot of the misinformation that swayed voters to vote for Trump. And he will benefit from it, as will a lot of other very wealthy billionaires, as reportedly they're already benefiting from it.
I'm just happy that he gets to be on a phone call for all the stuff that seems important. But whether it's Zelensky, whether it's Putin, he's just on the phone.
Exactly. That's all he cares about.
He has at all.
None.
I mean, he might have some, but I doubt it's for that. But for whatever reason, I mean, why don't we just get Mark Zuckerberg on the phone then? What about Tom from MySpace? Let him be on a call between here and whoever.
For sure. That is where we are. So I hope we have a country left at the end of this. I've tried is a very loose term, because by trying it means like cutting down to like maybe a couple hours a day doom scrolling, but I feel like I haven't done it as much post-election.
Check out this,
but you have seen some interesting things on social media.
And
they share
the hell back out, because I think I don't think I'm ready, because the way my shit is set up, I don't have with so much
bandwidth,
not for stupidity. So I think the thing that really stuck out to me the most over this last week on social media, I think the first thing that stuck out to me, I don't remember if it was Stephen Miller or somebody else, who literally was like, the day after the election was like, surprised, 2020 Project 2025 is real, and it's going into full effect. But I think the other thing that I saw on the internet was it Tom Holman? I believe that's his name. Tom Holman. Oh gosh. Tom Holman. But Tom Holman, the gentleman who I don't know if anybody remembers him specifically, but he was part of the Trump campaign before. I think involved with deporting immigrants, if I'm not mistaken.
It was the head of ICE.
Which I don't know if everybody else had caught some of his interviews prior to the election, where he literally was talking about how he thought that it would be so easy just to round up and deport people and didn't care who they were, whether or not they were citizens or not. Also, I hope everybody does take a look at the Enemies Act and what that actually means and how that could affect you, because it's not just for people who are immigrants, who don't have citizenship or are working toward it, or who may have just gotten citizenship. I think it's the Alien Enemies Act. So I really hope people are doing a lot more research, because people seem to be cheering on a lot of things in the comment section on the internet that I think that they might not have full understanding of. Other things that I've been noticing on social media this week that really kind of disturbed me, and I will say, I know that there are quite a few bots in the comment section, because a lot of times I just click on people's pages to see who they are, because there has been a large influx of bots who say just wild stuff. And I think it gets actual people to start debating and saying stuff in the comment section to kind of sow more division. And we do know that it's been documented that that's been something that's been happening to influence people's ideologies in this country. So part of what really disturbed me is that I want to say maybe a week before the election was over, maybe 2 weeks, is when people were really starting to try to hone in on the, if Kamala doesn't win, it must be Black men not showing up and not doing their part for democracy, which even when we talked about the BET Town Hall of Black Men, it was pretty much to the understanding that it was a scapegoat ideology, which is really fucked up. The thing about that kind of disturbed me is that I'm looking this week and I'm seeing some of the same people who are saying we shouldn't be singling out one group or making them to be the scapegoats, when we know that they're not the group that's in charge that would even be able to sway the entire outcome of the election. It's disheartening for me to see fellow Black people doing that to Latino people. as a whole, not taking into consideration that there are a large amount of Latino people in this country, one, some of whom who can't vote, some of whom who don't get the time off of work to vote because voting is not a holiday like the 4th of July. Others of whom just do not align with that. And I think it's really distasteful to see people trying to lump everyone into one thing, which is largely based on misinformation. So that it really bothered me, actually. Not kinda, it absolutely fucking bothered me. So I just hope that everybody understands, like, one, there's a certain amount of intersectionality that exists. And two, just like Black people are not a monolith, neither are Latino people. Right. Also, just because you speak Spanish or Portuguese or French and happen to be from the Caribbean, Central America, or South America does not mean that you only have the ethnicity of the country in which you are from. Because there are large African populations and indigenous populations of people in all of those countries. So it's no different than how we see some of the effects of slavery in our country and how it has perpetuated throughout several decades. And for some of those countries, their slavery ended a little bit later than ours. So I do think that we all could just do each other a better service by not picking up oppressor conversations and talking points and then spewing them onto other people when it was just being done to people who look like us last week. I think part of what really disturbed me is that I see certain people, like I said, some are actual people that I know. So I know that they're not just false accounts, posting stuff about like offering to round people up and help them get deported and this and this and that. I hope they're paying attention to all the things that are being said, because I believe it was Tom Holman who said that they would just start in places, large major cities like Detroit. And we know that that's a euphemism for major cities where Black people live. And police immunity was not referenced obscurely. It was referenced because that's what they need in order to do these things, as well as reintroducing stop and frisk, which means that they can just stop anybody that they think that they can say they think might be whatever. Stop, detain them, see if they have anything on them, and then see if they decide to let you go. I can assure you this is not a flawless system. I can assure you nobody wants to be in a society where you have to carry your free papers with you in order not to be collected on the street and have it sifted out and hope you get back home later. So I do hope that people are, I totally understand the sentiment. As a Black woman, I'm very much so tired. We've been doing a lot. It is very much so tiring. And you should get a chance to take some time off. But we can take our time off and we can rest without having to villainize anybody else, especially people who intersect with our community. There are plenty of Black people who are Black Americans born and raised, who have wives, friends, family members, kids, who may be from someone who is not from this country, whose family isn't. And if they're talking about denaturalizing people and deporting them, that could mean that you who are born here legally could too also be deported to wherever. Because as we see, they wanted to deport Haitians to Venezuela, which clearly are not the same place and they are nowhere near each other, not even the same landmass. So I think we all need to be very cognizant of when we're starting to engage, or people that we know are starting to engage in these types of commentaries or conversations, because I don't want anybody to ever say to me, well, women, look how many white women didn't vote in y'all interest. So I guess all of y'all get what y'all deserve, right?
Yeah.
Because women should have showed up for women better, right? That's not really how that works. So I just try to keep that in mind when going forward. And I think that from social media is one thing that really stuck out to me, because it's starting to take a very big turn of hate, which I don't appreciate. And not just with Latino people, even with the trans community, including when I think they put out like a bullet point of the first like 7 to 10 steps that they plan to do in regards to transgender people or transgender like children's agenda or whatever kind of BS they're trying to say. It's vilifying a group of people. There are Black trans people. So when we're vilifying trans people, Black people, we're also vilifying Black people. And sometimes they don't always take the chance to figure out if you're a trans person first. Because let's not forget that this very summer, we had women of color being villainized just for being athletic and being women of color in the Olympics. And with that being said, also people, please start doing your research, because some of the comments I've seen about like, oh, well, I can get with this stuff about trans people and this and that and protect our kids. If your kid can't get allergy medication in school or Tylenol or a vitamin, I can assure you they can't get no damn sex change. Okay? And also, I would like everybody to please understand the difference between sex and gender. They're not the same thing. What's on your birth certificate when you were born that deals with your biological organs is sex. It is not gender. They are not equal. Don't argue with me. Webster will tell you.
In terms of moving forward, we have also seen on social media about Black women checking the fuck out. Right.
I'm tired of shit. Take a break.
I think rest is well deserved and it should be essential. And so it's time to rest and reset and, enjoy our families, enjoy the holidays. That's what we'll be doing over the next couple weeks, and just leaning into all the things that bring us joy. If you're looking for other ways to keep fighting, there are always a multitude of volunteer opportunities associated with the holidays between Thanksgiving and into Christmas. Take advantage of being in community with the people who are in your neighborhood or in your town or city. Help out people in need. And then also, Jasmine touched on this a lot, but, take this time to read, especially, learning history, the history of this country and movements throughout the world. There's so much to evaluate in this moment. And if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it.
Yeah. Yes, that is exactly the quote you took out of my mouth.
But for now, we're just going to have another drink and
keep on alive.
We're definitely going to have a drink, and we're going to take some time off. So we'll come back with a full episode in a few weeks, and we'll keep you all posted on what's going on, but we'll be back.
I'm sorry, but I just had a moment in my mind. I just immediately heard out of the end of Kirk Franklin's song, "It ain't over."
Damn sure ain't over. And this fight is just getting started. We're going to be back, and we hope that you will continue to ride along and pour up with us.
Follow us on social media. We will be dropping some things just to kind of keep connecting with our audience, even while we're on this break, for you guys to kind of tune into until we do our next official episode after the holiday season.
Well, that'll be fun. I wonder what that's going to be like.
I don't know, but we're going to see. Y'all got to tune in to find out, I guess.
Wow. What did the kids say? Like and subscribe? Justice says that all the time.
That's just when the kids be watching those opening videos of all those. Them kids be like, subscribe, and I have the new Barbie. Look at this. They like, now. Would you like to watch me open my toys? Which I still forget. But
we about to make a toy opening YouTube.
Justin will probably get more heat than all of us combined.
Oh, for sure. Well,
it's been fun.
Happy holidays. We're raising up our glass.
Because we gonna need a drink for this.